Hey everyone, welcome back to Honest About the Irish, premiere of Season 2, final score from a couple nights ago, Sunday night. Today is Tuesday. Notre Dame over Florida State, 41-38, back and forth game. It was the game for the most offensive mascot, and Notre Dame won it. So the Leprechaun and the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame is the most offensive mascot, and eventually they'll become knocking at the door to cancel Notre Dame's mascot. It's already started. So that'll be interesting to see how that happens, since Florida State's been pushed out of the way as not the most offensive mascot. But enough of my opinion about the most offensive mascot game. And no, folks, it's not really about that. It was a joke. But they should have a trophy for the most offensive mascot. I think that would be kind of creative and kind of cool. But they will not do that because nobody has a sense of humor in America today. So, am I surprised over the outcome of the game? No, I'm not. 41-38. A little bit of a back and forth game in the second half. I felt like Notre Dame could have been up by more because Florida State was giving the game away in the first half. Florida State kept on shooting themselves in the foot on first down. Florida State did have that great run for 89 yards, which kept them in the game in the first half. But they were just atrocious on first down and third down, and they couldn't move the ball. Notre Dame's defensive line in the first half was very aggressive and was stopping Florida State at the run, except for the 89-yard run, of course. But I felt like Notre Dame had their opportunities to blow that game wide open. Now, the second half was a much different story. Notre Dame blew the game wide open, was up by 18. It looked like at that point the game was over. It looked like that Notre Dame was going to win this game convincingly and easy. We've seen a lot of teams have a sloppy first half. We saw it with Ohio State. We saw it with a lot of teams that are actually predict to be very good this year, except for Alabama. Alabama will blow out anybody on their schedule because Alabama is not human. They're from a different planet. But it seemed like every team out there struggled. But then again, I'm not going to give Notre Dame excuses, and let's go over a few things I did not like. First of all, let's get into my biggest complaint about Brian Kelly. When Brian Kelly has had a lead over by 3 scores or more, it seems like he puts his foot off the pedal, and that's the most annoying thing about Brian Kelly football teams. And look, I know Tommy Rees calls the plays, but still, Brian Kelly is the coach. Brian Kelly doesn't sit on the sideline and pick his hair and go, I'm not doing anything. No, he just still makes decisions, and he is the head coach, so I can give Brian Kelly some fair criticism. And we'll also talk about the what he said after the game. But first, let's talk about the game. And that is that when Notre Dame is up by 18 points, they went 3-and-out, I believed, when it was 38-20, when everyone thought the game was over. The next drive, Notre Dame went 3-and-out or had a first down and faltered and ran the ball, incomplete pass. And that gets annoying. That's something that really has bothered me about Brian Kelly teams, that he always seems to put his foot off the pedal. The defense in the second half ran out of gas. They were zapped. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was maybe Notre Dame's defense is not as good as we thought. It wasn't as good as the first half, that's for sure. Their secondary got burnt many times, and that's another concern that I have, because it seems like that teams with athleticism, tight ends, running backs, receivers, it seems like Notre Dame has trouble, especially their secondary, with containing that speed, and we saw that with Florida State. That is a concern, and I hate it when Brian Kelly just says, we're up by 18, let's just have 3-and-out plays. That's when Florida State started gaining momentum. When Florida State stopped Notre Dame on a 4th and short, there in the late second half, early first half, that really bothered me when Notre Dame was short. That really gave Florida State some momentum. I think at that point, Florida State had the momentum going into third and fourth quarter, the rest of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, and gave them some fuel. Plus, Notre Dame's defense was nowhere to be found. I mean, I don't know what the hell happened there. I think that Brian Kelly should have punted it, put Florida State in their own deep territory, let them go the distance of the field, 90 to 80 yards. But Brian Kelly, yes, he makes decisions. He's gritty. But you know what? This was a close game. It was back and forth. And listen, I am not surprised that the game was close. I kind of figured it was going to be close. I don't care how bad Florida State has been. It is very hard to win in that stadium, especially at night with a hostile crowd. It's the first time that stadium has been packed in 2 years. The fans were going to be excited. There was going to be energy. So, it was a tough road game for Notre Dame. I'm not going to make excuses, but I mean, I didn't think Notre Dame was going to blow them out. When they were up by 18, I was like, yeah, they're comfortable. You know, they should be able to win now. But deep down in the back of my mind, I knew this game wasn't over yet because of coaching decisions by Brian Kelly with the 4th and short, just questionable plays. You know, in the first half, Notre Dame had trouble running the ball. Everything looked slow and like they were running in sand and thick sand, and they just couldn't get anything on cue. It just looked like Kyron Williams was struggling, and the offensive line was slow developing, and you know, the flea flicker play, that just looked too slow developing. And Florida State has a lot of speed and a lot of aggressiveness, and they were able to hunt that down and, you know, prevent Notre Dame from getting a big gain there. But in the second half, that was better. Like I said, it was back and forth. Now, Jack Cohen, who I was very impressed with, I have no idea why Wisconsin got rid of him. He had 4 touchdowns. He had a little bit of a trouble in the first couple drives, inconsistent, but after the second quarter, after halftime, he took off and was very productive. You know, the receivers were doing great, and the defense, Kyle Hamilton, a guy who has a lot of speed. I like him a lot. So there's some good things to look for their defense from that standpoint, as Kyle Hamilton is going to be a beast. He already is a beast. He had, I believe, his 6th career interception. He's probably going to have a lot this year because he was able to run 40 yards across the field, it seemed like, less than like 3 seconds. That's how quick he is. I mean, I know I'm exaggerating, but it looked like a 5-star recruit out there from Alabama. That's how quick he was. Now, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but Notre Dame does have talent on their defensive line. And they were able to rush Florida State very quickly in that first half. But like I said, again, during the second half, they just, I don't know if it was the heat. I don't know if it was the humidity. I don't know if they were on the field too long. I don't know what it was. If Florida State found some momentum after that 4th and short play that Brian Kelly did not convert on. But they just did not look very productive at all in the second half. And I believe that Notre Dame was lucky to win this game. It seemed like there was 8 different lead changes. It seemed like there was 8 different games. Even though Florida State never really took the lead in the second half, they tied it at 38, missed their field goal in overtime, and Notre Dame made theirs, of course, to win the game. Now, you know my opinion about ABC and ESPN reporters. You know how I feel about them. But folks, I was really, really annoyed with Joe Tessitore. The kid out of South Florida, or Central Florida, I believe it was, who transferred over to Florida State, Mackenzie Milton, had a gruesome injury a couple years ago. He blew his leg out. They actually thought his leg might have had to been partially amputated. They had never thought he would ever come back. He comes in, fills in, does great, gives Florida State some spark. That was another reason why they had some momentum. And this kid is actually really good. He's really productive. He was great at Central Florida, transfers to Florida State. You know, it was great for him. Great story. He came up short. Florida State didn't win, but oh my God, did Joe Tessitore, the play-by-play announcer for ABC, he made it seem like he was the second coming of Joe Montana or the second coming of Tom Brady. I mean, he would not shut up about his leg story. And it's like, just Joe Tessitore is one of those announcers who's just over dramatic. Well, 5 years ago when Texas beat Notre Dame in Austin, remember he said the famous line, "Texas is back," and they only won like 4 more games. So yeah, Joe Tessitore gets a little excited, and I honestly, folks, I had to turn off the volume and listen to the radio because I could not stand Joe Tessitore. He is only good at for what he's been famous for, and that is boxing. But when it comes to college football, I think he's too dramatic. And look, it was a great story about Melton. It was a great up and coming for this kid to come in and prove himself after that gruesome leg injury a couple years ago. And he almost won the game for Florida State. They came up short. But, Florida State looked really, really productive on offense in the second half. Like, they made a lot of mistakes in the first half. Notre Dame, like I said, was lucky to win this game. But the ACC is not as strong as it's been the last couple of years. Like, Clemson did not look great against Georgia. North Carolina, did not look really good against Virginia Tech. So maybe Florida State could sneak in there in the ACC and win 8 or 9 games, and maybe this win by Notre Dame will be better at the end of the year. But Notre Dame has a lot to work on defense, pass rushing. Again, they're getting beat by athleticism with receivers by Florida State. So, Notre Dame's toughest games this year are North Carolina at home against Cincinnati, and of course, home against Southern Cal, the big game. They always call it the big rivalry game. Those are all home games, so that's good for Notre Dame. They're lucky there. But they'll have productive receivers, more athleticism than Florida State. So we'll have to see how Notre Dame transforms by then, and how the next couple games go against Toledo next weekend, and of course the weekend prior, Purdue. So that'll be a tough part of their schedule there towards the end of the season. But Notre Dame does have a lot to work on with the defense. I like Jack Cohen. I called it last year that he would be the starter, and I was actually right because he had the most experience. He won 18-6 at Wisconsin. Like I said, I have no idea why Wisconsin would get rid of him. He just looked great out there, and hopefully he'll build some steam here and some confidence, and Notre Dame will just go gangbusters on these next two games and be undefeated before that USC and North Carolina game, even maybe the Cincinnati game. So we'll have to check how they go throughout the season. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but like I said, I was not surprised about the score of this game. I knew it was going to be close. I think the spread was -7. Notre Dame was going to win by at least less than a touchdown, which was correct. They won by 3. Also, they said the total amount of scores that would have been scored would have been 52 points. I believe it was 38 plus 41. That's more than 52. So they were wrong there. It was a high-scoring game, back and forth, great game, exciting, but kind of an embarrassment for Notre Dame. And that led to the end of the game when Notre Dame barely won in that last-second field goal for Brian Kelly and his famous quote after the game to the ABC sideline reporter that maybe his team should be executed. Now, I'm paraphrasing, no, he did not execute Order 66 from Revenge of the Sith in Star Wars. Yes, I know I'm a dork. I had to use a Star Wars reference there. But he was referencing to an old famous coach that said it in the past. And, of course, everyone blew it out of proportion. Was it very smart to say? No, it wasn't. It was very dumb. It was in poor taste. You can't say things like that today in America. People are too offended. There are other things that people should be pissed off about. Brian Kelly years ago that happened at Notre Dame. I don't want to get into, but I hit the mic there. But what I'm referring to, you big-time Notre Dame fans out there. But this is something that was in poor taste, wasn't funny. He even admitted it. He said that people need to calm down in the press conference, which they do. I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious because Brian Kelly has raw emotions. Brian Kelly just tells it how it is. And the reason why it's magnified more is because a lot of people don't like Brian Kelly, don't like Notre Dame. So that's why they made it nitpicking more, the comment he made. It was very dumb. Like I said, it was in poor taste. Should he be fired for it? No. Should he be canceled for it? No. I mean, they're going to cancel the mascot anyways, probably in a couple years here because they're going to get their way. But should they cancel Brian Kelly for his stupid comment that he made? No. It was in poor taste. It was stupid. And he even said, that he shouldn't have said it. It wasn't funny. It was the heat of the moment. He was frustrated. I get it. They didn't play really well in that second half, especially their defense. He's a coach. That's what he gets paid to do. So I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be cussing at my players. I would say the same thing. They should all be executed. So I think that Brian Kelly's temper tantrums are actually funny. It's good for Notre Dame, especially when they're winning. So we'll see how the season plays out. Maybe he will execute Order 66. So, folks, that is pretty much it today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Season 2 premiere of Honest About the Irish. Next week in the Notre Dame take on the Toledo Rockets. That game is on 1:30 Central Time on not NBC. I almost said it. On the Peacock network. If you have the Peacock app, the game will be on there. So you make sure that you tune into that app. It is not on NBC. Now, NBC does own Peacock. Is this a thing that they're going to do in the future that maybe Notre Dame is all their home games are going to be on an app that you have to pay for $6 a month, or Notre Dame is going to make their own streaming site like some of these teams do where it's just all Notre Dame. That's it. And, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Notre Dame loves money, and they love making money. They love generating money. They love generating revenue. So we'll have to see how that goes. Well, that's pretty much it today, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Take care and go Irish, and we'll talk to you next weekend after the Notre Dame-Toledo game.